Hello, everybody. How are you today, guys? Always a pleasure to see all of you. And today, for this AMA, we're gonna present Swissborg, aka Xborg, the foundation for the for the esports. Sorry, with so many X, I'm losing a bit. So today, our guests will be Luis and Connor from Xborg. We're gonna talk more about our partnership together, what it represents. You have many questions for sure to ask them also. And to be my guests also, there will be Tom and Jack, who you probably already know. They are from the Zilliqa core team, and it's a pleasure, guys. So let's start directly. Luis and Connor, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having us. It's a great pleasure to discuss with you, the community eventually, and discuss about this partnership between Exborg and Zilliqa. As far as I'm concerned, Louis, the founder of Exborg, we've started back earlier this year. I have a background in tech, gaming, and finance. And yeah, I have the pleasure today to be leading Exborg. Over to you, Connor.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Always nice to see you and chat with you. Yeah, so I'm Connor. I head up growth at Exborg. And yeah, I've got a background in fintech and been working in Web3 for a little while now. Also a big gamer. So I like to play competitive Call of Duty and competitive Rocket League. But yeah, just super excited to be here, guys.
That's great. I didn't know about Rocket League, so I definitely want to face you one time in Rocket League. That's good. That's good. Also, Migas just joined us. Migas, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Migesh. I'm the esport lead for Xborg. Uh, I worked in traditional finance also as my background, and I've been a pro player for Counter Strike. I've been a gamer all my life, and that's what we're here for, right? To the new generation of gaming.
Let's do it. Absolutely love it. Oh, and I didn't know also you were a pro player at Counter Strike in sub top or really
1.6,
pro.
not CS:GO.
1.6. Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
I played for Geek Esports back then,
Okay,
which is like a big Portuguese. Or, I mean, now it's not as big, but back then it was one of the biggest esports organizations in Portugal.
absolutely. I remember you faced the Atlant team actually in Paris.
Yeah,
It was in the PGS, but a long time ago. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's old
Absolutely love
school,
it.
old school.
So let's start first of all. Give me 1 second. Up.
I'm thinking, Kevin, the audience are probably like playing bingo at the moment, and like what minute your cat comes onto the camera, and then everyone does a shot, and it only took 2 minutes this time, so that's good. Kevin has a very friendly cat.
Always coming during the AMA at the worst timing ever. So my first question is, who are Xborg and why did you want to do these partners with us? I know personally why we wanted to partners with you, but now explain it a bit to the community. Who are you? What's your goal is, and where are you aiming to?
Yep. Yeah, sure. So Exborg, so it's multiple things. You first have the community aspect, which is what's pretty much similar to a guild, is community of players. The difference here is that we are super competitive. We actually have some of the best teams across the most interesting FPS and TCGs in Web3, and that includes EV.io, The Harvest, Boneless, but also Gods and Chains and Skyweaver, also quite big in Cross the Ages. Today, we have a bit more than 6,000 players, and this is really the community aspect where we are very competitive. We look at super interesting games. We don't look at the games that are only around tokenomics and DeFi. We're really here for the gameplay, which is quite different from the other gaming communities out there. The other aspect is what we call the Xborg Labs, which is the suite of products that we built within our GameFi platform, and that includes the identity products, which enables players to build their on-chain gaming CV, so where they can have their achievements represented as NFTs that are not transferable, which we call soulbound tokens. Also, the ability for players to invest based on their digital identity via our launchpad, which we launched about 2 days ago now.
Okay.
And yeah, the ultimate goal we have at Exborg, I would say two things. First is to have the most competitive Web3 esports org, and the second objective we have is to create a protocol that enables the creation of decentralized esports teams, which is, to us, has the potential to disrupt the entire esports industry. And this is what we are doing in November. It's an ITO, which is an initial team offering, which is a tokenized esports team, if you will, where players' contracts are tokenized, where the ownership of the team is represented by a token. And about the partnership specifically between Zilliqa and Exborg, and why we wanted to do great things with you guys, is your focus on gaming. For us, we're all about adding value to our players, so to our community, but also to add value to our products. And when we understood that Zilliqa was big in gaming, we wanted to partner with you so that we could add further value to our players, always be on top of some of the best games in Web3 gaming, so that we give early access passes to our players. We also build teams with our players around these games. For us, it's very important to be connected with the major players in Web3 gaming. And yeah, this is the main reason why we went with Zilliqa as a partner.
Perfect presentation. Cannot say better. And actually, I'm super curious. You mentioned that you wanted to do an ICO. Will it be like a DAO, or how do you see it? I'm just purely curious for myself because I'm following you since a while, and I'm wondering how is it working.
So there are two things. There is an ITO and an ICO. An ITO is what we think is going to change esports, is to do an initial team offering. So instead of offering a token for a project, you issue a token, but just for the team. And we will do a first pilot in November where we create a new esports teams that is backed by a token. This token has governance over the team aspects and team decisions, such as the game they play, some of the partnership decisions, and we're making so that there is revenue distribution. So the way we frame it currently is via security token, which people will be able to acquire, and that's really gives you ownership of the team. One of the pain points of esports is fans and teams are disconnected. Having players invest from day one in the team, that of course brings them closer to the players, and that's one way in which we strengthen the relationship between players and teams via having them to we pretty much enable them to have skin the game. So this is the ITO aspect. ICO, so there will eventually be an Xborg token, which will be the main utility and governance token of the ecosystem. But that's going to be for later next year.
Makes sense, make absolutely sense. Honestly, I'm looking forward for it. I want to discover a bit more about it. I will make my own research, and it's not financial advice, but I'm really looking forward for it. I know that a lot of you are asking about the last update on the gaming side of Zilliqa. We are coming for that in a sec. It's mostly, guys, this weekend you will be able to play fully Web3 War, and we will not stop it after the weekend. Basically, we're gonna make an open beta for a longer term to check more about how servers, about the connection, about basically all the latest correction we did. And it's going to be great. So please, guys, join us. Always a pleasure. I love to frag you, honestly. It's super cool. But yeah, definitely join us. So why do we wanted Zilliqa to make a partnership with Xborg? A lot of people asked us this question. I think, Tom, you will be the best person to explain it.
Yeah, sure. Feel free to chip in though, Kevin and Jack, as I go. But
Always.
yeah, there was a few things that were really interesting from the start about you guys. So number one was that I remember the first meeting we had when you talked us through your kind of pitch deck and the overview of what you guys were doing, and you barely sort of mentioned blockchain technology, but in a good way. Like you were genuinely like looking at the problems in esports today and really focusing in on how like you could make a real difference. And the way I look at kind of Web3 and the blockchain industry at the moment is like the blockchain nerds are already here. Like it's 2022. If you're super into blockchain, you're into DeFi, you really love the tech, you already are here. The challenge now is like, how do we take however many users we've got today, like up to 1 billion users? And I think to do that, you've got to like package products for more of a consumer audience and be really clear about what it is that you're offering. And that's what struck me about like everything Exborg are doing. It's like just super focused on solving problems that already exist in the real world, not just doing something clever with the technology for the sake of it. So that was kind of point number one. Then point number two was it just aligned really well with what we're doing. So exactly what I just said, like leading with solving problems that exist in the real world and focusing on real users. We're doing exactly that from a gaming perspective. Like we've built Web3 War, but we're completely leading with the game, right? Like at the moment, the blockchain integration and all of the NFT side of the game and the token side of the game, that comes later. We want to focus on creating a great game first and getting people playing that first so that they can get more skilled as players, and sure, they'll be able to benefit from that longer term, but we're leading with the game. And then not just any old game, of course, we're building a game specifically that will appeal to esports fans. Like we're partnered with 3 esports teams already, and so obviously there's clear alignment there in terms of your focus from esports. And one of the things, there's one thing that all of our esports teams have said consistently, and one of the consistent challenge that they all face is like, how do I get our fans to be more loyal to the team? Because you've got lots of fans that are very loyal to specific players of specific games, and they might have a kind of casual loyalty to a team, but you haven't got that kind of hardcore loyalty that you have in traditional sports. And the model that you're talking about there, Louis, is clearly designed to kind of change that dynamic and build some more of that loyalty earlier on in the creation of a new team. And I think that's really interesting to see how that can, as you say, potentially disrupt the esports industry as a whole.
Perfect. Love this explanation. Thank you. What I wanted to add also is like when you build the games, that's true. You focus first on the gameplay. Then you focus mostly about, will the player with this gameplay have fun, or is it too repetitive? And also the third fact is you create the economy of a game. Let's say you take a MMORPG, you always create let's say the whole economy of the game, but after the fun and after the gameplay. You never go first. And that's where in Web3, I noticed also a lot of games are going first with the tokenomics, the design, the NFTs, and only after that with the gameplay. And this is actually where we are not focused on. We all have, let's say, good experiment in tokenomics, in gaming. And the best things about that is that we prefer to create a fun gameplay first and then add all the tokenomic side. So this is why we wanted to partner with Xborg.
If you guys let me, I'll add a little there on what Tom said.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, case that happened soon about the, let's say, fans not being loyal to the team. If you remember when Caps moved from Fnatic to G2, you saw a lot of fans moving from Fnatic to G2 just because of Caps, right? And I think that's really like a pinpoint of where esport teams need to work. They really want for their fans to be more loyal, right? They don't want them to just to be like a fanboy, let's say, where you follow from one side to another. Most times the player, not even the team, right? And here with the ITOs, it really aligns interests from the fan or the player to the team, right? Because you're gonna own a piece of the team from the beginning, so you want your team to succeed. It's not only the player. If the player changes, you still want your team to succeed. You might still watch the games that where your player went to, but you still want your team to succeed no matter what the players are. And you also have some governance to it, so it's like you're building the team together, from scratch. So you're like a fan that is building a team from scratch, and that's something you don't have in esports right now. I mean, either you're a pro player and you might have a little input, right? Or your coach might have a little input, or you're a team CEO, but that's it, right? As a fan, I mean, you buy jerseys, you watch the games, you go to a match, but you don't do anything else, and that's missing on the esports scene. It's really like a little ownership to the. You don't need to be the team owner, but like a little ownership for the fans and for the players. That's what's going to bring everybody together and have all the fans pushing for the success of the team, right? And I think that's what's cool in what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think I was actually on a panel at a traditional sports event yesterday, talking about, amongst other things, the difference between esports and traditional sports. And I think there's a few, like obviously the audience is younger, the audience is more tech savvy. But I think one key point that people miss sometimes is that this audience is already applying like tangible value to stuff that's purely digital, whether that's skins or just the putting a lot of value on gaming in itself, like value on the time spent gaming, like a purely digital activity. And that's something that is a barrier when it comes to the adoption of things like NFTs in traditional sport. But it's why I think this stuff will be adopted far more quickly in gaming and esports in general.
Absolutely. But actually, you're going into the next topic without doing it on purpose, and I like it. It's mostly about, let's say, when you create a game, a play to earn, and you have the guilds coming into it, that's trying to bring all the community of this game together. They're facing a lot of challenge, and I have to say that it's interesting to notice it mostly. Like, what's basically all the previous experience we had all in gaming, we all joined a guild, a clan to basically play all together. And now with Web3, it's a bit different because the community is immediately big. You don't start with a small community, let's say, when you join a Web3 game. So I will say, what's the biggest challenge, basically, this kind of new game, new play to earn will face around that?
Well, yeah, I think you've mentioning here play to earn. There's this whole thing about play and earn, but yeah, fundamentally, I think, well, no matter what happens on the guild side, if a game is just tokenomics driven, it's simply not going to work. The model where you have guilds that buy a whole bunch of assets to create yields. I think if you're yields driven, you're gonna have a very hard time as a guild. Simply, guilds have taken the asset acquisition risk, and they are now suffering. If we look at the AUM of those guilds, most were in axes or SLPs or governance tokens of those games that all fell apart. So I don't believe in that meta that much. I think guilds are now trying to pivot to a more esports like model where they don't farm assets, but they attend competitions, they sign players, which we also do because they understood that this play and earn model and even having a huge concentration of assets in a game is not great. Just like if you
Absolutely.
were to have very concentrated validators of your blockchain, that's never good, because they can in a way control the markets. And so to me, you had lots of games that wanted to have guilds invest in them, but now that sort of backfires because those guilds bring a certain mentality to a game, which was, hey, we're only coming here for the passive income. We took the risk to buy the assets. Now we need to pay it back and pretty much pay the rents over the assets, and that brings a very different crowd of farmers, which I don't think is healthy to have in a specific game. So as long as we stay play to earn like, I don't think that's gonna work. Sadly, those games that are around tokenomics, once the token value goes down substantially, like SLP or the underlying token of Titan Arena, then the game loses users because those farmers are not the right target users that will stay over a large cycle of a game. They will just come just like you come in a new yield farming platform. You just come for the high yields at the beginning and then you leave, and so you're not creating your loyal user base that way.
Yeah. I'll also say a little on that. Those play to earn early guilds, for me, they remind me a bit of the rush on WoW gold farmers.
I wanted to
I mean,
go into this.
I always like to put the pinpoint and put the pains on Web 2 and how we're trying to fix it. So one cool thing that we in Exborg will also invest in assets, and we'll also lend assets. But our goal here is to lend assets for players to win the matches, so not really earn. What we want is performance, and for them to win, achieve victory, get their goals, become pro players, get scouted by teams. So it's all about more performance than earn. I mean, just as in WoW, if you have a game that is only about yield, I mean, players will just move for the next best paying game, right? They won't be loyal. They'll just WoW was giving a lot of money to the gold farmers, but eventually other games appeared and they just move and move and move, and they're not loyal to the game. So this is definitely not the way. This needs to be fun first, performance, and definitely not tokenomic driven.
Yeah, I agree. I think in general in life, if you're doing something purely for the money, then and like there's no other reason that you're there, that's kind of not going to be sustainably successful generally. And I think there's examples that spring to mind is like in golf and like what's happening with like that live movement. I don't know if there's any golf fans on this stream, probably not, but like there's like this whole controversy in golf where someone started this new sort of organization breaking all the rules where it's but they're paying players a fortune to like go over and play, and it's like they're not going because it's a better game or it's going to be better for fans. It's just about the money, and it just ultimately it just feels like a lot of the play to earn stuff was a bit like that, and then it's attracting people for the wrong reasons. And if you lead with the gameplay, lead with a story, like actually create something compelling, and then there's opportunity to earn on the back of that. If you happen to be a skilled player or you become a skilled player, then I think that can still be massive, even if it doesn't mean that like the whole world can play a game for a living. Like I think it could still be an exciting future, right?
I think I would. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You don't necessarily need to play for a living, right? But I mean, as a player myself, it's good just to earn a little, like for the amount of hours you play, right? Even if you're not like in the pro side of things, it's always nice to feel that you're contributed to your game time, and your loyalty to the game is being contributed to some extent, right? Lou has a cool say that I always try to quote, which is like, games without players have no value. So some of the value of the games has to go towards the players, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's what makes the game is the player base. Without players, I mean, you don't play the game, right? So
I like that. Did you write that down, Kevin? We can use that.
I kinda expected that already. I heard it already from Valentin also. But I wanted to bounce on what Louis said and Migas also about the play to earn, the passive income. That's true. During this bull run, we saw a lot of play to run, and most of them it was the same action all the time, repetitive. You had all the time to do the same movement. So if you would have been good in IT, you program a bot that do basically this action, and you're sure that you will have your passive income by all the time doing the same action. But this is basically diluting the TVL of the game, of the protocol, and there is no fun because it's not you who are playing, only your own bot. And that's why with Web3 War, as an example, I mostly gone into skill to earn and not play to earn. I don't want to basically reward anyone who is playing, and sometimes they will just stay in the game to receive some token, because this doesn't bring any fun for the players or for even us, founder of the game. I think the best, let's say, way to counter this is to reward the player who are really playing the game in ranked match, that they win or lose, depending basically how the match happened. But if basically you win the match, you need to get rewarded somehow because you won the match against your opponent. But I think also that the opponent, if they really tried their best, should be, let's say, rewarded. And this will be soon released in Web3 War. We're going to show you soon. Not now, but soon. It's all around the tokenomics. It's a new design aspect that doesn't exist yet into any games that I tried. And I tried a lot in the play to earn area. And this would lead, let's say, to our next question mostly. So all play to earn we saw during this bull run had either one or many different business model. What do you think was one of the best business model we saw during this bull run? You can tell me Axie Infinity, you can tell me any other things. Honestly, I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a good one because I'm not sure I can quote one or what went well. I think Aavegotchi, I mean their token, the Ghost, did fairly well because they had a bonding curve to issue the tokens. But as far as the revenue model, um, I haven't. I think Skyweaver did decent because they don't have like a liquid token, so it's only via cards, and there is no this whole speculation aspect. But yeah, to me, I won't be able to quote like one that made sense. And also on the investment side, I think tokenomics is some of the hardest thing to assess because all of the dual token models failed. You know, this mechanism of breeding an NFT to get more rewards, and then the underlying is used to breed. And I can't point a finger at one game that did it successfully. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. If you guys know some of them, I'm very keen to look at the tokenomics.
We had one with Tom where we disagreed, was DFK, DeFi Kingdom. Because it was fun at first, let's be honest. You join DeFi Kingdom, you be like, wow, a video game for yield farmers. That's the things. And honestly, personally, I invested in it. I gone out of it. Tom also was on it, and we had a lot of discussion around that. But as you said, it was breeding new NFTs to mint new NFTs to get more reward. So it was a try. I absolutely loved the game and the concept behind it, but I don't think that Tokenomics was so incredibly good.
Yeah, I think where I got really excited about that game was, well, partly because I'm into kind of medieval, like role playing or strategy games generally, and so I really liked that. But it seemed like the game did have like some real depth in terms of strategy, and like you could really get quite into it, and like really going into the weeds of like how to compare how to like breed different types of heroes, and like how that could generate like a new more powerful type of hero and that kind of thing. But the bit that convinced me that like, oh wow, this could be really massive is like it was very passive but still fun. So it was like you could just play the game like for 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. You could play on your phone, and then it was still like progressing. So I was thinking, like, this is like the future. It's like passive gaming, passive earning, sort of investing, sort of DeFi, sort of gaming. I thought they'd unlocked this magic new thing, but the tokenomics didn't hold up in a sustainable way when for various reasons. But I think there's something in that, and I'm excited about what the next sort of year or two will hold in terms of new games coming out that are all experimenting with different kinds of models.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Really, I really think you're right. We will see what will be the next one, as good as DeFi Kingdom for the next bull run. I'm really curious.
I mean, I think I just to chime in on that and be like kind of contrarian to shoot back at the question. To me, it feels like the conclusion from the bull run really was that the business model doesn't matter that much, and really what it's about is what I think you'll see as the narrative for every game that's on blockchain but hasn't released yet, which is that it's gameplay first, and what we were saying at the beginning, that it's blockchain second, right? Like it's tokenomics second, and really, if you have a game that's fun and you have people in there investing their time, the business model is going to follow, and like that's ultimately where people need to be putting their attention, right? Like I think you see a lot less time spent on the business model in Web2 games, and over a longer time horizon, a lot more money being made, just because they've managed to sustain a player base. So to me, I feel like that was my conclusion from this first generation, is that there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but ultimately the buck stops with gameplay.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's sort of like the thing that's scarce and that you need to focus on is attention and like building that audience, but then also but in a sustainable way. So like one way of getting a load of attention and building an audience is through a speculative like tokenomics led opportunity that is going to get around crypto Twitter and get lots of people very excited, but it's likely to be very short lived. But how many games have actually managed to build up a really build up a lot of attention just based on the excitement around the gameplay? And that's kind of the game we're in now, right? Like all battling to be the game that can really grab attention and show the industry what good can look like from a gaming perspective, not just tokenomics.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Sorry,
yeah, go
Kevin.
ahead. Sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to ask maybe a question for Connor or anyone else really, but I'm interested, like through your work with the community at Exborg, like whether you've kind of come across any backlash from traditional gamers, because that's been something that's been fairly vocal. And I wonder whether you guys have got a pretty good pulse on that, given that you're sort of actively building the community on the esports side.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. But I don't think, we haven't really seen a backlash in terms of, traditional esports fans or players towards Exborg. There has been quite a bit of backlash towards, NFTs in gaming and blockchain gaming. But I think because we are, we really cater for players, especially, through our tournaments. And, we're super focused on, really, we all come from traditional esports and traditional gaming. So we really know what it looks like or what it needs to look like, what Web3 gaming needs to feel like, and we're trying to build that out. At Exborg, we want to be, the top Web3 esports org, and one that kind of looks like a traditional esports org. So I think fans and players are really familiar with that, and I think that resonates with them, and they they like to see that we're super competitive. We only play good games that have great gameplay. So yeah, I think that's why we haven't seen as much backlash as usual or whatever. But yeah, we really focused on being the best and being super competitive and creating vibrant ecosystems around games where players can watch great content, participate in tournaments, participate in community game nights. So that's what we really focus on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is that most of the backlash that I felt came from Web 2 is towards those early games, right? Those early play to earn games. Like a little like Kimsey was saying, like you can just put a bot to play Xe and it will do it for you. And I think that's what Web 2 players didn't like. Here in Xborg, we really cater our ecosystem towards the players. So players first, and I think that's what they want. They don't want like bots first or earn first. So yeah, everything comes back to what we were saying. Like early beginning was tokenomics, and now is more player orientated, right? And I think that's because we always strive for that, and we always defend that since the very first day. I think most Web2 players relate to that, and I think that's the way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I think that's
interesting.
really.
Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
No, after you, mate.
I just wanted to say that I think that's just really the theme of any conversation, really, in Web3 gaming right now, is that ultimately it boils down to problems and desires that already existed in Web2 gaming. Like, I think it's a bit it's the idea of Web3 is intoxicating, but really, when it comes to even things like botting, these are things that have been pervasive issues in Web2 gaming as well, and things that have killed games in the past. Like even most recently, like World of Warcraft, botting has been a problem in that game forever, and it continues to be a problem, and it continues to eviscerate the economy in that game. And it's something that the devs in that game are continuing to struggle with, and has been a serious issue, and has led to a decline in players over time. So yeah, I think a lot of these observations are like the rediscovery of problems from Web 2, and there's a lot of value in kind of spending more time as a developer, as a publisher, as a member of the ecosystem from like an esports perspective, looking at the mistakes that were made in Web 2 and just applying them in Web 3. Like there's serious overlap in pretty much every quadrant.
I wanted to add also something. I'm a gamer also, and I'm in crypto since a really long time now. But what's annoyed the gamer basically about crypto? Why are they not simply coming to the Web3 from Web2? There is two reasons. The first one was the price of graphic card. Thank you, the miners, but really, you made us hated by the gaming community mostly. I mean, you want to buy a GPU back to the time for $500, and during the bull run, the same GPU costed 2K5, and you'd be like, thank you, but no, crypto, definitely I hate it. Just for this reason. The second reason was the bad advertisement, let's say, from the NFT. People started to realize, whoa, what is an NFT? This guy just bought a monkey JPEG. He flipped it for $250K. Incredible. What happened just after? People, big companies, let's say in the gaming area, wanted to go in Web3. And they started to talk about NFT. But they did it a bit, let's say, they did it a way that was super clumsy, I will say. Because you start to introduce to gamers like, guys, NFT will be revolutionary. You will love it. But at the same time, they see some people trading some JPEG of a monkey. So they were like, that's mean nothing for us. We are not from this branch. And with these two reasons, they started to really hate crypto. But in fact, if you really dig into the Web2 games, most of them look like already the blockchain. You go on Steam. Steam, for me, was one of the first centralized gaming blockchain. You can have skin, sell it, trade it, swap it, change it or exchange it with a friend. So for me, it's a kind of blockchain, even if it's fully centralized, but it's a kind of blockchain. So that was mostly the true reason why I think the gaming community is not yet let's say they didn't enter yet the crypto community. But it will happen. I'm quite sure for the next bull run, we're gonna talk a lot about the gaming community joining us, and that's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I felt the same. I think that most games from Web2 that try to enter the NFT craziness, they just enter to get a piece of the pie, let's say, and not really to use NFTs as a tool to improve their games. And I think that's what they're going to do now. And now that's when the Web2 is going to join.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's like spot on. Again, like learning again to like the theme of learning lessons from Web 2. I think where you see, and maybe to that original business model question as well, like where you see the most value in Web 3 features is just supercharging the things that are good about Web 2 gaming. You know, like the thought experiment that I hope I don't do too many AMAs because like I use this example constantly, but the thing I love is thinking about Counter-Strike in a Web3 context, you know, and there's like a couple of things that you could add to that. I think that would just improve the experience, where you take the skins and you make them NFTs instantly. It's a more compelling skin economy, already multi-billion-dollar industry. Immediately you've added jet fuel to that. And it's the same thing with competitive wagering and that kind of thing, like being able to bet a little bit of money on a game with you and your friends. Like these kinds of things are super straightforward and compelling, and the average player is interested in having that. So for sure, I think the next generation of games, as you were saying, Migas, is going to be games that are looking at their core audience in Web 2 and looking at how they can magnify the fun factors that already exist, rather than trying to completely reinvent the wheel and kind of shift the emphasis and the energy and the interest to something that is, I guess what you would say in air quotes, like Web 3 native, right? Like staking pools and this kind of thing. So
absolutely. What's the next in blockchain gaming that you are all excited about? It's a general question for all of us.
Yeah, I think for me it's having great games. You know, as simple as it sounds, but you know, at the end of the day, we talk about tokenomics and so on, but we're pretty much aligned that gameplay is what matters. And no, to me, like it's not because you have like you work in blockchain gaming that you know things have to be complex. So I'm looking forward to just have great games that are also not you know doing like a ton of tokens, like you know 3 tokens ecosystem. I think if you just have a good game and you make you know a marketplace for your in-game assets, you don't even have to have like a governance token. But I think that already adds a ton of value for the players since they own their assets. And you know because players fundamentally don't want to talk about all the token inflation, or you know should I dump the rewards now or should I wait later. They don't want to be, well, you don't want to like you know have your brain memory on that. You know, you only want like a good gameplay. So I'm super looking forward to having those big studios or new indie studio just simply releasing great games. You know, that we have fun playing, and that's as simple as it gets.
I'll do a follow-up question on that one that someone asked me yesterday that I think is cool. I agree with Lou. I think having great games is the goal. But what do you guys think? Who will make the next, like, or who will make the first really cool game with Web3 features? Is it going to be a Web3 company launching a game, or is it going to be a Web2, you know, behemoth implementing Web3 technology into their game? Which one do you think is going to come first?
I will answer that because I've written a blog post that talks about this. I think that there's like a lot of like revenue headwind for it's hard to say, obviously. Like the answer is TBD. But I think that there's a lot of revenue headwind and other uncertainty for these really large publishers. Like I would say Ubisoft as an example, but they actually stand out as somebody that really went early with their Quartz platform and Rainbow Six, or not Rainbow Six, I'm sorry, Ghost Recon, and what they did with NFTs there. It was really impressive experimentation by them. But in general, I think that there's a lot of uncertainty and headwind for these large studios to put in the kind of research and energy that they need to produce a successful Web3 game. On the flip side, I think like indie studios, there's all of the energy in the world, right? Like they're putting in everything to make this a success. They don't have as much on the line as a major large Web3 publisher developer, but ultimately they're also lacking things like funding, experience, etc. What I would expect is something in between, where you have a spin out, a team that has come from with a serious Web2 game development background that has a lot of the experience and a lot of the frameworks to build a successful game. They have the credibility to raise, and they have the vision and the risk tolerance to build something truly innovative and that combines the fun of Web 2 with Web 3. So I would say it's a bunch of Web 2 developers that are fully committed to Web 3 rather than some kind of like cell within a Web 3 within a traditional large AAA Web 2 publisher.
But that was my reply as well. Is like Web 2 masterminds pivoting to Web 3, right? And building the game from.
I think there's the writing is on the wall. Like I think there's a lot of those kinds of studios forming right now. Like one that I know personally, like Digital Insights Games, for example. It's a lot of a couple of Tencent executives that spun out and were able to quickly raise and quickly hire, and they're building a game with 30, 40 years of traditional game dev experience. So studios with that kind of profile, I think, have a good chance of finding real mainstream success.
For me personally, how I see the things, we are going right now in DeFi that you have more bridge, you have more cross-chain capability between protocols. If you take Aave, if you take Curve, they're almost on every blockchain, and you can easily swap, let's say, all your assets in between every blockchain. I think the same will soon start in gaming area and the gamification, let's say 3.0, that you have your NFTs that could be soul bound to your wallet that represent you, and you will be able to use this NFT in every game, basically to have almost the same character in most of the game. So far, this idea is not well known, let's say, but I'm quite sure for the next bull run, we're gonna see it a lot. In the same blockchain, basically, that your NFT will represent your character, and you will be able to use the same character in every game with the same skin. And why not after that doing it cross-chain? That if the game is on different blockchain, you will be able to use the same NFT as your avatar in different game on different blockchain. And the reward you could get will be different in every blockchain or every game mostly. So for me, I see the future like this. I could be absolutely wrong and it will never happen, which will not surprise me too, but personally, I think it will be cool.
That's cool. That's cool. That's like you transition to your character transition to every game. So it's you in every single game and not a new you in a new game, right?
Exactly.
That's cool. That's cool. That's a good POV.
Imagine that with a metaverse as Ready Player One, where you could, after that, show your avatar, you spend, let's say, the game currency into this metaverse for X reason. It will be amazing. But so far, I don't think there is so many projects having the same vision. I wish it could be, but not so yet.
I think that the thing I'm really excited about is probably a little bit further down the line, where one or more of these games like truly blows up and really becomes genuinely like culturally significant in a way, even if it's just culturally significant within Web3, but on a really like broad scale. So what I mean by that is like, say when we get to the point where owning an in-game asset is like as much of a status symbol as owning a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk. If we can kind of get a game that's at that level so that it's being talked about everywhere, and like obviously I hope that comes from Zilliqa, but even if it doesn't, I think at that point that opens the door for like mainstream adoption like across the board.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like to hit that scale, because even though I think a lot of us in Web3 gaming would like to think that everybody in Web3 is a gamer, like to hit that scale, you've already had to have solved that that Web 2 adoption thing, right? Like to get that scale that's super attractive, and it's that kind of clout for a Web 3 gaming NFT. Maybe you already have 1 million.
Yeah, you're right. You do, because realistically, yeah. Otherwise, unless there's a trading opportunity that's big enough to, alongside it, which is not really like as likely in gaming, so that's not really what we're going for. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, because I think that it's gonna. I mean, and ultimately, my sort of dream for this whole thing is like, can we get to the point, like we're talking about esports, right? Like, how good do you have to be to make a living through gaming right now? Like, seriously good, like 0.1% of players in the world at any one game or whatever it is.
You can ask like at least 2 of the people on the call.
Yeah, right. you tell me, guys, how good you actually have to be. If you can lower that bar and like open up the dream of being an esports player to just like 1%, the top 1% or the top 2%, that's like millions of people around the world. You can suddenly like start thinking, oh, well, actually, maybe like at the moment I'm in like the top 20%, maybe I can get to the top 10. And like that can become like a viable option for like so many more people. I just think that's going to be great for the world.
I
We're
like
saving
it.
the world here. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely like it. Do you have any question, guys? Any more question? Apparently not. Does the community have
So
some
I
questions?
was, Mia, I do have a question regarding strategic decision to go into the hardware with the console. We saw Solana with the Solana Mobile, also going in the hardware. What was the strategic thinking behind, doing the console, and how, what is going to be that impact on the Zilliqa ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think early days to assess the impact, but the strategy was based on a number of things, right? So, like number one, obviously there's a big pool of gamers out there that prefer to play on a console. So we want to provide an opportunity to do that with the games that were being built on Zilliqa. But then we also liked the idea of, okay, but you don't just play games on this console. When you've stopped playing, you can also mine crypto while you're sleeping, kind of flipping the gamer backlash point on its head that Kevin was talking about earlier. It's like suddenly you're using this graphic card for both activities. And then the third thing, actually, which hasn't been talked about that much, but I think is quite important, is the console is also going to be a very user-friendly hardware wallet, as well as a gaming console. And actually, if you think about what it's like using your Ledger or whatever hardware wallet you use today, if you're a crypto person, that's fine. You've got your head around it. It's okay. But if you're talking about the average gamer that's not interested in crypto at all, really, or only in a very light touch way, then being able to introduce them to the concept of a hardware wallet through a gaming console is something that we think can be really impactful. And then the final point I'll make is we're also looking ahead long term to see how, like, where gaming hardware is used in the future, and how that's like being part of that and being on the front foot of that. I think is going to be really important for Zilliqa Gaming strategically.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
I'm keen on trying that console.
Oh, you will, definitely.
We all are. Yeah.
I saw a question from the community, and I think it's absolutely worth it. Any thoughts on how people will adopt Web3 gaming? What do you think, guys? What will be the best way, basically, to bring gamers into the Web3 gaming? Or not mostly everyone, also. It doesn't need to be mostly a gamer. It could be anyone.
I mean, I think it's going to be something that you see a lot from a lot of the generally the pitch that you see from a lot of these kind of second generation Web3 games, which is that it's gameplay first and crypto second. You have a lot of wallets that you know kind of open in the background, and surprise, it's actually Web3. You thought it was just a fun game, but actually you own your assets now. And it's going to be some permutation of that. It's going to be a really attractive game, very fun, and then on the back end, you Trojan horse ownership, which when you say Trojan horse, maybe it has sort of a negative connotation, but really it's providing a real ownership where otherwise in a Web 2 context, what maybe you thought you were walking into, you have no ownership at all. I think ultimately that's where like the real adoption has to come from. I think it's a kind of a heavy lift to adopt people, you know, and kind of get people to buy into a Web3 ethos and then get your first billion users, your first 10 million players, that kind of thing. So
Yep, that's exact. Yep, go ahead, Migas.
No, I'm just saying, as these new games pop, I also think new content creators, not new, but like you know, big content creators are also going to pivot a little to these new games, this new way of fun games, and that are curated and targeted for the general player, right? I think that's definitely going to help and boost the appealing of the whole Web3 or gaming 3.0 industry.
Absolutely agree.
One
Luis,
thing
sorry.
sorry, Kevin. Go on.
No. I know that Luis wanted to talk.
Oh yeah. Go on, Louis. You go first.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, to say that on the tooling side, we are seeing lots of tooling ecosystems that are just built in a way so that a wallet can be created from Google or Discord or Twitter authentication. So they're abstracting much of crypto stuff and can basically log into a game, and then that creates a non-custodial wallet in the background. They're specific to that game or to the authentication. And you basically have like a frictionless Web2 experience, but just on the back end, just like Jack was saying, you own the assets. I think we have Web3 Earth that is doing exactly that. And yeah, very excited about this tech.
Tom, you want
Yeah,
to
so one thing that I've been thinking about is I wonder whether actually a lot of lapsed gamers will come out of retirement, retirement inverted commas. So I think a lot of people play video games a lot during their 20s and then kind of stop towards their mid to late 20s as like, I don't know, they start families or career pressures sort of take over or a bit of both. And gaming sometimes gets sort of pushed to one side because it's not like, it's deprioritized because it's not such a productive use of time. And if that stops being the case because you're actually like earning some pocket money from playing, or like there's an opportunity to be earning as well as playing, I think perhaps actually we'll see a whole new type of gamer. As well as like current gamers adopting Web3, it might be that actually there's a brand new audience entirely to go after through Web3 gaming. But the games have got to be great before either of those things are going to be happening.
Yeah, I agree with that last point. The games have to be, really great. Myself personally, I play, finish work and then I'm gaming, for the rest of the evening. And for me to, put down, God of War or something, or like Rocket League or, the latest Call of Duty for a Web3 game, it needs to be, really good. It needs to be better than these huge titles, that have actually, been building their games. I mean, like Rockstar would, take 6 to 7 years, even 8 years sometimes to build out their new title, like, a Grand Theft Auto title, for example. And I think it's going to take a while for us to see a game on that scale. But I think, yeah, that's a huge part of the adoption from Web 2. You know, these guys are hard to impress, and they're used to really high quality stuff.
Agree. Absolutely agree. Tom, you mentioned something really interesting. Like, basically, after the 20s, the people who are used to be gamers start to kind of drop it for, let's say, a new job or going for more higher schools. So, of course, they cannot play so much. But also, if they get rewarded, they will stay longer on the game. And I think, Migas, you are a good example also, because back to the time in 1.6, we were playing for beers, mousepad, or even a mouse as the reward for winning the tournament. Look where we are now. I mean, you have some tournament with 10 million cash prize. It's crazy.
I remember winning tournaments for mouse pads and or headphones would be like, I don't know, the dream.
Exactly.
Mind blowing. I don't know, that was cool. And I do tell my wife now that when I'm playing, I'm working and I'm earning, so that makes sense, Tom. And she doesn't get as fat as she used to be, or as much. So
that's what it's about, really. That was my point,
yeah.
really. I can justify it to my wife. Yeah.
I agree. That was spot on. I think that many people might start joining again gaming, or at least, I mean, I'm not saying, for example, I wouldn't go back to pro because it's first, I don't know if I have the tenacity, right? I'm just getting older, but first you definitely need to dedicate a lot of time, right? But I'll definitely play a little more and be a little more loyal to the games if if I'm earning something, or even, for example, like we're talking on the ITOs, you get a little rewards for supporting or playing the game or curating the game, right? Curating the teams. So I think that's the great goal, right, of this Web3 and earning a little, is really like involving more the community and having more pros or more players, and just bringing everybody together, because just for the 0.1% or 0.0001%, it doesn't make any sense, right? The gaming community is huge and they need to be rewarded because they make the games.
Absolutely agree. I think, guys, it was a great AMA, honestly. I love it how little debate on many different topics, like tokenomics, like gameplay, like how do we see the future business model and all. So, guys, always a pleasure to have you on board. I think it was shared. And for sure, see you soon again. Do you guys have a little comment for the ending? Like something you want to announce for the future, an
Download
event?
Web3 War.
Yeah, go and play Web3 War, everybody.
Exborg versus Zilliqa staff Web3 War. That would be cool.
Yeah, we need to, for sure. As soon as we're ready to set up some tournaments, yeah, we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. So, guys, it was a pleasure. Wish you a great day and see you soon.